Thanks so much, and for everyone today. So, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. It's my pleasure to be with you today, presenting on behalf of UN Women. I don't know if everyone is familiar with UN Women, so I've just prepared a very short slide um, to basically tell you we are one of the youngest UN organization. We were created 10 years ago, so we're celebrating our 10th anniversary this year. And we are the UN agency dedicated to gender equality and empowerment of women. And we were established to accelerate progress overall this mandate, but specifically also at the moment in four areas. The first one being leadership and political participation of women, and peace and security. So we do a lot of sub-projects within these four themes, but this is our main areas of work. Concerning innovation, in 2018, UN Women including for the first time innovation in its strategic plan and listed it as a driver of change. And after that, we drafted a short innovation strategy where we tried to identify what it meant specifically for the organization and what should be main areas of action. And we identified three. The first one being how do we tackle the underrepresentation of women as innovator? So this includes tech, but not only. It's broader than that. How do we promote gender responsive innovation? And I'll talk a bit more about what it means in a few slides. And how do we increase investment in innovation for the most marginalized women, especially in our projects and programs implementing in our country offices? So for the first priority areas, the underrepresentation of women in innovation is a complex issue. And it's complex because it requires really to adopt a life cycle approach. And one of the pilots that we tested this last 2 years, that's called She Innovates, was to see how we could look at the barriers that are faced by girls and women through their life to be innovators. Faced first by girls at schools, faced in their communities, faced when they're trying to transition from university to a workplace, or when they try to create their business or create any kind of startups. This has driven the work of a partnership we created that was called at the time the Global Innovation Coalition for Change, where we had public and private sector actors that got together and said, how can we address these life cycle challenges? How can we create spaces for girls to meet, to share experience, to find mentors, to network? So we organized meetups, we organized labs, we organized few events, and we also try to see how we could organize communication campaigns. One of the issue that remains and is the critical to address is stereotypes. How do I address stereotypes and the lack of visibility for women innovators? So the photos you see on that slide are the photo from last year campaign that we ran for International Women's Day. And it really shows you also the how powerful it is to partner with private sector and to engage them not just as donor but also as actor of change. This whole campaign was done pro bono by various partners that we had, and we could see on International Women's Day all over London, New York, and lots of online and paper media photos of awesome women innovators that we hope are no longer impossible to ignore and will one day and hopefully very soon be as famous as the Mark Zuckerberg, the Steve Jobs, and all the names that we can name when we're thinking about innovation without specifically having women names coming to mind. Why we're starting by in our strategy very intentionally to focus on women innovation because for us that's the priority. we see that technology reflects the people who make it. Usually, when you innovate, you draw from your experience, your life, and currently, because most technology is designed by men, we end up having technology that reflects their needs and prevents women to have access to technology that really benefits their specific requirements. Um, as a result, and this is the example that we have mentioned at the beginning, and this is many other examples that maybe some of you have come across. We see all over the media examples of innovation, whether they're products or services that are, well, at worst biased or discriminatory, and really, even at best, not really fitting all the specific needs that that women have. You probably heard about the Amazon sexist AI recruitment tools that was looking through CVs and putting women's CV on the side. The latest one is the one on Apple Pay. I think it's a favorite now because actually they realized that Apple Pay was sexist to women, well, through some of their users, and one of the most famous one being Steve Wozniak, the co-founder of Apple, who realized that even though he had a share account with his wife, their credit score was different. So these examples are sometimes light and sometimes actually you see that not including girls and women's specific needs in innovation put their lives at risk. And another example that usually I try to showcase when trying to describe what is gender responsive innovation is this one. It's really hard to explain why sometimes we need to stop looking at innovation as gender neutral, and this is the best example. Crash test dummies. They were invented in 1949, and you can see this is the best example of what we call one size fit men, which has been created. It's an expression. I don't know if you have read Invisible Women by Caroline Criado Perez, but I highly recommend this book to you. And this shows that if you have a gender neutral approach, well, it means that you end up having men as the gender neutral example that is being used in innovation. And this shows you that if you don't integrate gender at the design stage and at the very beginning, it actually takes a lot of time to make things right. It took more than a decade to realize that, you know, women come in different shape and form, and actually were much more prone to be wounded in car crash because the cars were designed and the safety features in the car were designed for men that were usually more taller and bigger than them. It took 2 decades to have crash test dummies that were children. So again, during that period, a lot of lives and a lot of injuries were caused because of this lack of inclusiveness in the innovation design. And it took more than 3 decades to come up with a crash test dummies that include pregnant women. While all this time, we could see that motor vehicle crashes were one of the leading cause of fetal death. So gender responsive innovation is really not about just, you know, making some product or blue for boys and girls, but really being extremely vigilant in what you design and how you do it. And we try to launch the gender innovation principle. And our take was that from the many discussions we had with public and private sector partners, a lot of them were telling us we're lacking basic guidelines on how to start and how to be better at gender responsive innovation. And I'm curious to see the Slido results, and maybe that's a conversation we can have later on. But we come up with this website. Well, first to to send a powerful message and to say, look, we don't have enough women in innovation, but once we do, it's not the job of the women to bring a gender perspective. It's really everybody's role in the team to do that, and we all come with our own bias and life experience, and we need to make sure that when you're designing and using human-centered design, everything is everybody and every shape or form is taking into account. And so that's why the principles first look at the need to make a high-level corporate commitment. We want to make sure that when we integrate gender in the innovation cycle, it's not just because you have one or two people on the team that are keen to do that, and when they leave, there's no legacy, but that really at the highest level of your organization, there is a commitment that this is important. And then try to identify how it can be done, not just at the design stage, but also when you are testing, when you are implementing, when you the way you are carrying your M&E. Are you looking for sex disaggregated data? Are you doing gender impact assessment for your new services or products? And then how do you also still look at gender when you are scaling and having more impact? You can go on the website and you will see that we have put practical tools, checklists for you to use. You can also assess your team, and this is a website that we hope to continue building in the next year. This next slide is on our third and final priority, which is how we are integrating innovation in our programming and to develop solutions that benefit the most marginalized women, women that are victims of violence, refugees, women farmers in least developed countries. You will see on the left side, this is a publication that we put out last year and that you can find on our website with a couple of description and example of the projects that we had. We're mentioning here on this slide the blockchain project. If you want more information on this one, we have done a presentation at the Tech Learn Talk last month, and you can check it out if you want more details. One example that I'm going to talk briefly about today is one of the digital tools and how we are trying to develop digital tools in programs and how we are combination. So the digital platform that we are developing and testing right now, it's called Buy from Women. It's basically a platform that has been designed to support our climate smart agriculture program. And in that program, we are trying to see what are the different actions that we can take to improve access to land, access to finance, access to information, and access to markets. And what we try to do within that program is to see, well, if we include a digital tool in the way we're implementing this program, if we basically include mobile phones, how can we further accelerate progress for women? And we developed a specific platform that was first designed mostly for improving access to markets and see how we could connect farmers with co-ops and buyers, how we could facilitate online purchases and sales, but also how we could use this as a small ERP system so that women could track all the sales and all the stocks that they have, and they could use that then for credit scoring and having better access to finance. How they could also use their phone to access specific information on production, on storage, on prices, on weather, or anything that is useful for their business. And also how they could use their phone and GPS to map their land, to use this mapping then to improve their forecasting and track harvest volume and using land data. As I mentioned, what we try to do is use these lessons that we've learned through that project and to feed it in our policy work. Last year, we published a working paper on digital finance and how it can be leveraged for gender equality and women's empowerment. And if you look at this publication, we are looking at the very specific barriers and risks faced by women in the context of digitalization, but also trying to provide concrete recommendations for actions for a wide range of partners and see how we can have a multi-stakeholder approach and what are the actions that should be taken by countries, by NGOs, by international organizations, by service providers, to have a much more gender responsive way of developing digital tools. This is a quick of at the moment in our team, and you can see that we have 3 big clusters and then one theme that is cross-cutting. The first one, digital innovation, as I've mentioned. This is where the example I've just mentioned is taken from. Frontier technology, this is mainly our blockchain projects. We also have a few examples of social innovation, especially using behavioral insight. And if you check the videos that were done last year for Behavioral Insight Day, you will also find some example of our projects. And then the cross-cutting themes around these 3 categories is obviously how we are promoting women innovators and gender responsive innovation. I know that this is a very important question each time that is being asked, which is, what does your structure look like? I wanted to put an organigram, but really this is, I think, much more telling of the journey that we've had and we continue to have. And I think that's fine. I think innovation teams go in the UN through the same process as innovation. It's not linear, or at least it hasn't been for us. We started working on innovation in 2015. At the time, we had a focal point, and at this stage, our progress were modest. We were looking mainly at, we were mainly in a discovery phase. We were trying to be also in a learning phase, trying to understand better what was innovation, what it meant for us, and starting to identify maybe a few pilots that we could test. In 2018, we reached a much more mature stage where we really moved from just having a focal point to trying to create a team. We were 3 people at the time, 2 staff, 1 consultant. And basically the challenge there, once we created that team, was to try to identify where to locate it. We were first created as part of policy and program in 2018. Then we moved to the executive office in 2019. And now, as of this year, we're back in policy and program. This year, we are going through a change management process. So I think this is the occasion to review the structure, to review the positioning of the team, to try to design a new strategy and see how we can align this work to the work of the generation equality priorities, which is our next big initiative, especially with regard to innovation and technology. So I'm just going to take a few minutes to talk about this Generation Equality Forum, because I know that some of you know about it, but some of you might not. And I think this is an exciting time for the UN, and everyone in the UN wanted to work on gender innovation to come together and collaborate. Just a few words of background for the ones that are completely new to this discussion. This year, 2020, is the anniversary of the Beijing Declaration, which is basically the most visionary agenda for women's rights that was created in Beijing 25 years ago, and every 5 years we do a review with member states to see what are the specific challenges that remain and progress that have been made. And so this year we decided that in addition to this review, we wanted to organize a specific forum to try to see how we could really strengthen movement building, focus on mobilizing partners, recognizing that this was difficult time in many countries in the world to talk about gender equality, and that actually progress we're stalling, or sometimes we're going in reverse. So to see how we could really mobilize the world and try to accelerate action and make sure that we would meet some of the goals that we have set ourselves with the SDGs. So there will be 2 moments this year where we're going to try to bring together partners from civil society, private sector, countries, academia. The first important moment will be in Mexico in May, where we're going to launch the forum and some of the actions that we hope partners will commit to. And then the culmination moment will be in France in July. And by specific action, I want to spend just 1 more minute talking about what will be one of the big outcome of this forum, which is the design of actions coalitions, because we want it not just to be an event, but we want it to be a moment where we can identify specific actions and get all the actors present in Paris to make bold commitment in specific areas. And so these action coalitions and the themes were launched this January, and there are 6 of them: gender-based violence, economic justice and rights, SRHR, climate justice, technology and innovation, and feminist movement and leadership. So I just want to recognize the fact that for us it's really important to see this quality. It's big because it really shows that with digitalization, now we see that these issues become as much as a priority for gender equality as GBV, as SRHR, as peace and security. I don't know, maybe some of you have seen the speech that was given by the SG last week, and he identified 5 areas in which progress needed to be made, and one of them was gender digital divide. And he said that if progress is being made there, then we can achieve gender equality and transform the world. So I think for us as a UN system, it really sends a powerful message that this is a field that can be an enormous force for good, bring radical changes in our societies, and I hope that through this coalition we can just join forces on that. We've started some consultation already with partners to try to see what it meant for them, innovation and technology for gender equality. This is very preliminary, but I wanted to share that with you to see if that also resonated with you. These are the 4 themes that come up the most in the discussion we had. The first one being, how do we improve the participation of girls and women in STEM and innovation? How do we bridge the gender digital divide, and specifically create tools and services that can be accessed, can be used more easily by women, and also looking obviously at all the issues related to connectivity and affordability. The third one is gender responsive innovation, and specifically in that category, looking at AI and how do we make sure that the technology that we develop doesn't create more discrimination or bias. And the last one being safe digital space, and how do we prevent online harassment and online violence. So really what it shows is that clearly this is a big task, and it requires we are aiming to link it with another initiative that you might be aware of. The report on digital is that in that report is recommendation 1C on digital inclusion and digital equality. Since December, a small group of partners have been starting to meet to see how we can make this recommendation happen, and the first meetings that we had showed a lot of enthusiasm, but also a lot of scattered effort. A lot of us are doing analysis, are doing reports, but what we need now is really to come together and try to see how we can find common goals and drive actions, because analysis is there. I think we have put the finger on some of the issues that need to be fixed, and now we need to see how we organize ourselves, especially at country level, to fix it. So I'll stop there, and once again, thanks a lot for connecting this morning.